Okay, the sheer momentum in this part is staggering. Yu Fu finally reaches the coast, but only after that crucial encounter with the Tang Tribe. Their sophisticated fishing and social structure, Tangi's sharp mind instantly grasping the potential. Of Han tech like the Tadui and writing, it throws the whole primitive nomad stereotype out the window. Hearing about the end of the land from their perspective, complete with typhoons, demon winds, and monkeys, blue-faced monsters, adds such realism. Then the actual sea voyage. The awe and terror of that whale encounter perfectly captures the raw power of nature dwarfing even Han ingenuity. But the real kicker, arriving at Bamboo Island to find the fishing tribe already waving hello, recognizing the Han flag, thanks to Shou Ya's earlier diplomatic groundwork. It brilliantly shifts the dynamic from pure exploration to navigating relationships already in progress. Just how deep do the connections planted by the first delegation run? The four men on the small boat pricked up their ears. Hey, they'd found the right person. Not only did this fellow speak broken Chinese, but he'd also mentioned the envoy mission. It'd be strange if he wasn't a Bamboo Island native. That's right, we're from the Han Tribe. This is Bamboo Island, isn't it? Are you fellows from the Xin Tribe? The leader quickly tried to cozy up, his face breaking into a wide grin. The youth on the reef platform was also quite enthusiastic. Yes, Bamboo Island. We're the Fish Tribe, although, calling us the Xin Tribe isn't wrong either. The four Han tribesmen. What was that, Fish Tribe, Xin Tribe, what was going on? But the leader was quick-witted. Ignoring that for now, he got straight to the point. We came looking for the envoy mission. Have you seen them? Do you know where they are? Seen them. I see them every day. I'm even pretty friendly with a Han envoy named Shou Ya. The youth grew even more enthusiastic, patting his chest. They live right over there by the river. Shall I take you? As soon as he said this, the Han tribesmen were overjoyed. Contact so quickly meant promotions and riches back home were practically guaranteed. Really? That's wonderful. Could you come aboard our boat and show us the way? There are too many reefs and our big ship, it's a bit unwieldy. Don't worry, we'll make it worth your while. Hearing this promise, so characteristic of the Han tribe, the Fish Tribe youth's eyes lit up, and he grinned so wide his eyes practically disappeared. Han tribe friends were certainly decent folk. No problem. This boat of yours is really something, the youth said, eyeing the landing craft enviously. Can I just come right up? The four men on the small boat exchanged glances, a surge of pride. It's great being from the Han tribe, welling up inside them. With a grand wave, one called out, "Come on up, brother." The small boat rowed back to the large ship. Yu Fu had been watching intently. Seeing them bring someone back, he felt reassured. He personally went to the stern to greet them, and upon asking, confirmed his judgment was correct. This was indeed Bamboo Island. With a local guide, navigation became much smoother. The Fish Tribe youth chatted with Yu Fu about the envoy mission while pointing the way, incidentally informing him which nearby waters concealed hidden hazards underwater, which clarified things considerably for Yu Fu. Going from Cliff Mountain on the northeast corner of Bamboo Island around to the mouth of the Clearwater River would involve crossing mountains and ridges on foot, but it was much quicker by sea. The two-masted sailboat caught a full wind and surged forward, reaching the destination in less than an hour. It was only 4 in the afternoon, still broad daylight. The Han envoys built a simple dock here, the one named Shou Ya mentioned. The youth said, pointing ahead. They even asked our tribe for help back then. Look, it's right there. We're here. Everyone looked where he pointed. Whoa! It was a sizable bay where the freshwater river flowed into the sea. On both sides of the river mouth were vast stretches of sandy beach, looking to be the size of several football fields. You usually can't see this beach, the youth added. It only appears during the major low tides at the beginning and end of the lunar month. Normally it's all underwater. It dawned on Yu Fu and the others, giving them a direct sense of the tidal range here. Let's head ashore, the youth suggested. Yu Fu surveyed the surroundings. Mountains on 3 sides, sea on 1. It was a good spot, more than enough for a small harbor. Even the tribe's largest ships could moor here, 100 or so with room to spare. It was just rather crude right now. Floating on the water was a rickety bamboo raft jetty tied with ropes. It was barely stable enough for a person to disembark, let alone transport goods. Forget horse carts. Even someone carrying goods on a shoulder pole would likely capsize the thing. But the advantages were also clear. There was an entrance to an inland river, possibly allowing ships to sail directly inland. Plus, the place was safe, quiet, and sheltered from the wind, a good haven during typhoons. Is the envoy mission far from here? Yu Fu suddenly asked. Not far, just a short walk. You said the encampment is right by the river? Yep, really close to the river. You can see it just standing by the bank. Yu Fu nodded. Visible from the riverbank. That meant a few hundred meters at most. In that case, why linger here? Full sail. Enter the river. Let's sail right up to their doorstep, Yu Fu commanded with a wave of his hand. Aye. Hearing doorstep, everyone on board cheered up. After months at sea, finally reaching a place belonging to their own people? Wasn't that just like arriving home? The two large sails rose with a whoosh, billowing in the sea breeze. Sailors adjusted their angle, and the sailboat surged forward. Again, pushing upstream against the river current. They sailed on for more than 10 kilometers. Yu Fu muttered to himself, So this is what you call a short walk? Walking over 10 kilometers would take the better part of half a day at least. The Fish Tribe youth seemed to notice his confusion and quickly explained, You can take shortcuts walking. You don't have to follow the river the whole way. This big fellow of yours can't leave the water, so it has to take the long route. Oh, I see. Yu Fu nodded in understanding. No problem, as long as we get there. A little slow is fine. The sailboat's speed wasn't actually slow. A distance that would take nearly half a day to walk was covered in about 20 minutes under sail. Ahead, the river widened suddenly to about 200 meters across. The west bank was covered in neat fields of lush green corn. The east bank was bare but not far from the river. A brick kiln was particularly eye-catching, puffing out black smoke. Whoa, look at that thing. Seeing its shape, a wave of instant, overwhelming familiarity washed over everyone on board. It felt just like home. It was unmistakable. No matter which Han Tribe territory, a brick kiln was standard issue. Sure enough, wherever there were Han people, there were brick kilns and billowing smoke. On the bank, Shou Ya was busy directing local native workers in bustling construction work when he suddenly spotted a large sailboat flying their own flag approaching on the river. He froze on the spot. The next second, the people on the shore rushed over, shouting emotionally, many with tears instantly welling in their eyes. Compared to Yu Fu's exploring group, Shou Ya and his fellow diplomats were the ones who truly had it rough, crossing vast oceans to reach this godforsaken, this exotic and unfamiliar tribal land, and staying for over a year. Who wouldn't miss home? Suddenly seeing their own ship and fellow tribesmen, the homesickness pent up for over a year exploded with a bang. Shou Ya's heart sank. Oh, no. How many people would now be crying and demanding to go home? How was he supposed to get his work done? When would the support the chief promised ever arrive? The sailboat came to a steady stop in the middle of the Clearwater River. Yu Fu deftly ordered the anchor dropped and sails lowered. 2 men were left aboard to watch the ship, while the rest swarmed onto the landing craft and headed ashore. The Fish Tribe fellow and Tangi from the Tang Tribe both eagerly tagged along. How did you get here? Shou Ya asked as he walked up to meet them, posing a question that almost caught Yu Fu off guard. Staring at the suddenly appeared large sailboat, he was clearly baffled, completely unprepared. Hey, the chief sent us to scout the sea route to Bamboo Island. Took some doing, but the journey went all right. We managed not to mess up and found our way here. Yu Fu stepped onto Bamboo Island soil and quickly exchanged fist clasps with Shou Ya. Shou Ya returned the gesture and grabbed Yu Fu's arm. Ah, such a long journey, you must be exhausted. Quick, come inside and sit down. I'll have someone get food. All right, Yu Fu replied, following Shou Ya towards the envoy mission's encampment. The others were also attended to. Shou Ya noticed the two natives with Yu Fu, chatted briefly and learned they were guides. He didn't recognize Tang Chi, but the Fish Tribe young man looked familiar. He had someone bring out a few shiny porcelain items as a thank you gift and sent the Fish Tribe youth on his way. Over by the mouth of the Liuyang River, we encountered several large tribes. The biggest is the Tang Tribe. They have several cities, Yu Fu explained, indicating Tang Chi. This is Tang Chi, the guide I hired. He knows the sea weather well, so I brought him along. The two sat down in what was currently the mission's only brick house, and Yu Fu began to explain the situation. Ah, so that's how it is. Shou Ya looked over the men Yu Fu had brought. But with such an important mission, the chief wouldn't have sent you with just one ship and so few men, would he? Where are the other ships and people? Could it be? He didn't finish, but everyone understood the unspoken fear. Yu Fu smiled. You're overthinking it. I had the main force wait near the Tang Tribe. This voyage was definitely risky. We didn't know exactly where we were going or how far it was, so we had to prepare for a long journey. That's why we sailed with a minimal crew but carried maximum food and water. Our luck held out. Apart from being delayed a day and 2 nights by a storm, the whole trip took just 10 days. As a result, we actually have plenty of food and drink left over. What? You ran into that huge storm the day before yesterday. 2. Were you all right out at sea? The storm 2 days ago had hit when Yu Fu's ship was already very close to Bamboo Island. Even the island's northeast side had been thoroughly drenched. Shou Ya had been quite frightened even on shore. Having grown up inland, he had a healthy fear of storms at sea. Hearing that Yu Fu's group had been caught right in it, he exclaimed in alarm. Huh? Yu Fu gave a wry smile. That was our first time encountering weather like that. But Tang Chi says this is just the beginning. It's only early July now. This kind of weather will likely persist for several more months. Don't expect a peaceful summer. He sighed and continued venting his frustrations. If I'd known, I would have asked the chief for a proper ocean-going vessel. Our ship is fine for inland rivers, but it's really not cut out for the open sea. The cabins are small, can't hold many people or much cargo. The hull structure isn't sturdy either. The ocean is vast. It's no joke. You might not believe this, but right after setting sail, we encountered a huge sea beast. It was bigger than our ship. It circled us twice, and just drawing breath seemed to make the ship rock. Luckily, the creature seemed placid enough and ignored us. Otherwise, we'd have been done for right there. Then, just as we were getting close, we hit rough seas again. Our ship might be 20 meters long, but in those waves it was tossed about like a toy. The dozen or so of us on board couldn't do anything but watch helplessly as huge waves crashed splat onto the deck. Water poured into the hull, and we just bailed desperately, praying for the storm to pass quickly. Oh, right. Yu Fu remembered something important. All our charcoal got soaked by seawater, so nobody's had a hot meal in 2 days. We've just been gnawing on dry rations. Get us some hot soup to drink quickly. Now that he was among his own people, Yu Fu didn't stand on ceremony and made his request directly. Of course, it wasn't much of a demand. Logically, as hosts, the mission was obligated to provide food. Don't worry, it's already being arranged. Shou Ya patted his chest. You can try our local seafood soup and corn cakes. The mission's conditions are a bit basic right now, so we don't have anything fancy to treat you brothers, but there's plenty of corn cakes and fish soup. Eat your fill. Hearing this, Yu Fu paused. What, is the mission having a hard time right now? Not exactly, it's just we're severely short on supplies and manpower, Shou Ya said, pausing. He glanced around the room to confirm there were no Bamboo Island natives present, and that Tang Chi wasn't local, then continued speaking softly with relief. Negotiations with the Xin Tribe in the first half of the year finally started showing promise, and we settled on a trade agreement. I also used the bridge-building proposal to pique the interest of the Xin Tribe's paramount leader, getting them to agree to let us establish a permanent presence and even allocate some land for us. Just finding this site for the encampment took over a month, and the final decision to settle here came from the chief's reply. Only after arriving did I realize these local tribes aren't a unified bloc. There's plenty of room for our Han tribe to maneuver, to win over the neighboring Fish Tribe and Shou Tribe and build our reputation. I distributed quite a lot of supplies. When goods ran low, I even started using money. If you hadn't shown up soon, I would have worried myself sick. Shou Ya poured out his plans and current predicament like beans spilling from a bamboo tube, looking expectantly at Yu Fu, hoping he could spare some support. So that's how it is. Seems you haven't had it easy either, Yu Fu said, frowning. But there's a limit to how much I can help. To be prudent on this trip, most of our supplies were left with the other 3 ships. This vessel is carrying mainly food and drink. Salt. Well, that's hardly rare on Bamboo Island. There's really very little on board that we could trade. Yu Fu felt awkward. He wanted to help but had nothing to offer. Hearing Yu Fu's explanation, Shou Ya's brow furrowed deeply too. Both men fell silent for a moment, leaving only Tangi, the outsider, sitting there looking rather blank. Outside the house, however, things were quite lively. The mission members, away from home for over a year, eagerly surrounded the newly arrived crewmen, peppering them with questions about home and changes in the tribe. The crewmen, adventurous types themselves, were extremely curious about the Xin Tribe, Bamboo Island's customs, and local resources. The 2 groups hit it off immediately, chatting away with great enthusiasm. Shou Ya watched the lively scene outside, somewhat lost in thought. Suddenly he slapped his thigh. "That's right. How could I forget?" Yu Fu jumped, startled by his outburst. "What did you think of?" Shou Ya's face flushed with excitement as he quickly explained his idea. "We can't just keep waiting for aid from the tribe. Even though you've opened the sea route, a round trip takes a very long time. Sea transport is more convenient than land, isn't restricted by seasons and can carry more at once. But establishing it on a large scale won't happen overnight. I reckon the earliest would be next year." Yu Fu nodded. That made sense. The journey was too long. It was almost July now. By the time they returned with the news and another fleet was organized, it would be the end of the year at the earliest. So, we need to find a way to become self-sufficient. We can't rely on trading white. Salt they have plenty here, and they aren't interested in wooden things like furniture. What they lack most, what they really want, are our textiles and handcarts. Those are high-value trade goods, and also tools for production. If we could make them ourselves here, we wouldn't have to worry about lacking trade goods in the short term. Shou Ya grew more excited as he spoke. "You want to weave cloth and build carts yourselves here?" Yu Fu exclaimed, surprised. "We have no choice," Shou Ya said, spreading his hands helplessly. "But even so, we'll need help from your expedition." "What do you need us to do?" Yu Fu didn't refuse outright, asking for clarification first. "Tools and manpower, of course. To weave cloth and build carts, what we lack most are carpenters and carpentry tools. We need to build looms and handcarts ourselves. Your fleet surely has those, right?" Shou Ya's eyes were full of expectation. Yu Fu didn't agree immediately, calculating inwardly. The expedition group was geared for long-distance voyages, away for months, far from home. For convenience in ship repairs, the fleet indeed carried numerous craftsmen and a full set of tools. With enough materials, they could even build a boat themselves. They had several sets of carpentry tools on board right now. But this matter involved leaving personnel behind stationed abroad. It was a sensitive issue, and he certainly didn't have the authority to make that call. A decision this significant had to come from the chief. So Yu Fu said, "We do have the tools and the people, but whether we can proceed with this, I think, it's best to request instructions from the chief first. Since we're both here, we should write a joint letter to the chief, explain the situation, report that we're safe, and tell him our 2 groups have successfully rendezvoused." Hearing this, Shou Ya finally snapped back to reality. He'd been so caught up in his excitement that he'd forgotten this crucial step. At Yu Fu's suggestion, he immediately nodded. Yes, absolutely. We should do that." At the mention of lighthouse, An image immediately popped into Yu Fu's mind. That large reef platform out at sea, the very place where they'd met the Fish Tribe fellows. Its wide-open view made it a perfect natural lookout post. Building a lighthouse there would make ships coming and going on the east side of Bamboo Island visible, far better than being tucked away next to the harbor. Of course, both he and Shou Ya only knew a lighthouse was a tall tower, fitted with a powerful light that could guide ships at night. As for what kind of light could be so awesome as to shine that far, they could rack their brains and still not figure it out. Over the next few days, the two men huddled together, hammering out the port plan. Drawing on his seasoned experience as a boatman and incorporating the local hydrological characteristics, Yu Fu came up with a new proposal. The docks and jetties needed changing. The original seaport plan. Toss it. Yu Fu felt that the tides here were ridiculously extreme with a huge range. Building fixed docks was just asking for trouble. A floating dock. Those things weren't durable, broke down constantly, and were costly and troublesome to repair. Better not to build one at all. His idea was this. The bay Shou Ya had initially chosen could be simply tidied up and used as a temporary parking lot for ships to rest up or take shelter from bad weather. The actual loading and unloading docks should be moved directly into the inland river built right next to the envoy mission's encampment. The encampment would be the dock would be the cargo depot, all in one place. Why do it this way? Frankly, Yu Fu didn't know how to build a proper seaport. Since he didn't know how, why not try a different approach? There was more than one way to skin a cat. If one method didn't work, just switch to another, right? There's always a solution. What Yu Fu was most familiar with were the Han Tribe's several inland river ports, those in Weishan Commandery, Liuyang Commandery, and the newly built one in Dongxin Commandery. Each could accommodate the tribe's largest vessels, and all were situated along the Liuyang River. So, when it came to building an inland river port, he felt quite confident. Therefore, Yu Fu decided to bypass the problem of the tidal range altogether. By placing the docks in the inland river where the water level was relatively stable, the rise and fall of the sea tide would have little impact. Even if there was some effect, it wouldn't amount to much. They had carefully observed the mouth of the Clearwater River when they sailed in. The river mouth was nearly a kilometer wide. Though it narrowed upstream, by the time it reached the mission encampment, the river was still over 200 meters across. The Han tribe's largest ships were only 40 meters long. Sailing them in this river was perfectly feasible. They could turn around with their eyes closed. Although Shou Ya wasn't an expert in this area, the examples back in the Han homeland were clear. Which major city wasn't located by a river, with rows of docks facilitating water transport? He knew how to follow a pattern. So, when Yu Fu proposed it, he immediately nodded, agreeing it was. Of course, the offshore parking lot couldn't remain completely bare. Necessary facilities would eventually be needed, but that could come gradually. As Yu Fu put it, first solve the problem of whether cargo can be unloaded, then figure out how to scale things up. The most urgent task now was to get the envoy mission's operations on Bamboo Island up and running. Shou Ya deeply agreed and swiftly adjusted the plans accordingly, just waiting for the chief to approve funding and personnel. By the time you received the news, it was already the 5th day. After Yu Fu's arrival on Bamboo Island, the carrier pigeon Azuka must have encountered bad weather, slowing its flight. Furthermore, you weren't in Hanyang City at the time, but on the island in the middle of the lake east of Weishan Commandery, instructing people on glassmaking and chemical production. The message had passed through several hands within the tribe, causing delays. Reading the letter, you felt a surge of pleasant surprise, though it wasn't entirely unexpected. You knew perfectly well that as long as they followed the route you indicated and encountered no major mishaps, finding the sea route to Bamboo Island was a sure thing. As for Shou Ya's letter pleading poverty, requesting supplies and support, and even proposing solutions, support would certainly be given, but just as the two of them had figured, it wouldn't be fast. The ships could only travel so quickly. Shou Ya wanted to build looms and handcarts himself? You thought that was perfectly fine. transferring some technology to Bamboo Island, winning over the locals, and casually currying some favor. It was a worthwhile deal. There was also Shou Ya's private mention. Seeing their own ship arrive had made the mission members restless, with many muttering about wanting to go home. After all, they'd been away for over a year. The homesickness was real. He hoped you could be accommodating and arrange for a group to be rotated back. You had no objection to this. Want to come back? Fine. But again, replacements and supplies couldn't be sent immediately. This would have to depend on Yu Fu's ships. After reading Shou Ya's letter, you picked up Yu Fu's. It wasn't very long. The first part was a straightforward account of their journey, how they got there, which tribes they met along the way, what they discussed, and what local products they discovered. You weren't particularly interested in these details. There would be detailed reports later, so you skipped to the end to read his suggestions. Develop better ocean-going ships? You wholeheartedly approved. But this wasn't something that could be achieved overnight. Designing a new ship type and launching, it would take forever. For the time being, the existing three-masted tower ships would have to suffice. They were certainly better than those simpler inland riverboats. Reaching the end, you tapped your fingers on the table, pondering for a moment. Then you picked up your brush and began writing a reply to these two men on the front lines, pointing them in the right direction for their next steps. First, Shou Ya's idea of self-sufficiency. You thought, brilliant. You not only approved it on the spot, but also casually praised them both for showing initiative and responsibility. Then came the specifics of implementation and personnel rotation. With a flourish of your brush, you laid out the plan. Since Yu Fu's ship was empty anyway, let him leave first. Return to the vicinity of the Tang Tribe, rendezvous with the 3 ships left behind. Gather all personnel and supplies and then head straight back to Bamboo Island. Upon arrival, Yu Fu was to leave a few essential craftsmen with the fleet, carpenters and sailmakers capable of basic repairs, just enough to ensure the ships didn't break down. All the master craftsmen were to be left with Shou Ya, the personnel. Shortage in the fleet would be filled by those from the mission who wished to return home. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Perfect. Finally, all trade goods and tools brought by the fleet were to be unloaded and left for the mission. In return, the mission would help Yu Fu replenish living supplies on Bamboo Island and acquire a batch of white salt at a low price for the fleet to transport back. If they ran low on food during the return journey, trade salt with the natives along the coast. That stuff was dirt cheap on Bamboo Island anyway. Once the letter was written, you immediately sent it off with the fastest carrier pigeon. You knew Yu Fu and Shou Ya were waiting eagerly over there. After sending the pigeon off, you threw yourself back into the grand project of building the chemical plants on the island in the lake. The most crucial project on this lake island was the coking plant. This facility was the lifeblood determining the entire Han tribe's steel production. You had to keep a close eye on it. With a wave of your hand, you designated these few lake islands as county-level administrative units. The mint remained under your direct control, while the other factories were assigned to Weishan Commandery. Incidentally, the Babao Mountain copper mining area was also upgraded to a county. Being close to Liuyang Commandery, it fell under its jurisdiction. In the coking plant storage yard, coal was piled up like small mountains, with a similar-sized heap of limestone beside it. The coal came from Dongxin Commandery. Thanks to that fellow Jingyan, Dongxin Commandery now had a population exceeding 10,000 and was shipping out vast amounts of coal daily, enough to fill a 1,000-ton 3-masted sand transport. Ship every 2 days on average. The limestone came from the Babao Mountain mining area. Babao Mountain was an established mining district with plenty of manpower and good equipment. Quarrying limestone was also less strenuous than mining coal, so its supply was no less than that of coal. With raw materials secured, only the equipment was lacking. The coking furnaces were the top priority, requiring large quantities of refractory bricks. Fortunately, both Babao Mountain and the Salt Lake iron mine had the materials for making these bricks. They were mined, fired into bricks locally in Weishan and Liuyang commanderies, and then transported separately to the Lake Island coking plant and the Xingang Commandery steelworks. Materials were plentiful, and thanks to the large number of captives from recent wars and a group of experienced construction foremen, the coking plant construction progressed rapidly. The planned residential area within the factory complex was already starting to take shape. The Lake Island was spacious, so you didn't opt for basic apartment blocks, instead building individual houses with their own sizable courtyards, allowing residents to grow vegetables and raise poultry, making them largely self-sufficient, except for grain. No firewood? No problem. Coal was supplied abundantly for cooking and heating. You assigned all the captured prisoners of war to this Lake Island. They were given a degree of freedom, allowed to reunite with their families, and provided with materials by the tribe to build their own houses, though they were required to work for the tribe. Escape? Not a chance. Revolt? Even less likely. The island was bordered by swamps on one side and water on the other three. Its location had been chosen with this in mind. Without boats, no one could leave. While they could grow vegetables and raise animals, grain and salt had to be supplied from outside. If they caused trouble, you wouldn't even need to lift a finger. Cutting off their food and salt supplies would make them lose heart quickly. In this environment, the captives had mostly resigned themselves to their fate. Besides, the Han tribe treated them decently. Diligent workers received rewards like livestock and cloth. Apart from being unable to leave the island or see outsiders, their lives were better than before. Consequently, the captives on the island were quite well behaved. Watching the blast furnaces spring up one after another and more workers joining the construction effort, you mused that well-behaved slaves could also be sent here in the future, granting them a measure of freedom. Although they might never leave the island in their lifetime, their descendants could. Through gradual assimilation, their children and grandchildren would become proper citizens of the Han tribe. After inspecting the coking plant, you immediately rushed to the shipyard in Luoyang Commandery. The recessed hold type 3-masted sand transport ships were still being churned out rapidly. The tribe's demand for minerals was huge, with many ores needing transport from afar. These fast and efficient transport ships were needed, the more the better. Besides coal and metal ores, other non-metallic minerals were also in high demand. The greatest need was for limestone and gypsum, along with large quantities of sand, feldspar, mica, and the like. Limestone was a key raw material for coking. When heated, it produced carbon dioxide, which was piped into the dry distillation towers to prevent the coal from burning, allowing it to properly turn into coke. The leftover limestone wasn't waste either. Mixed with gypsum powder and iron powder, it became a construction marvel. Cement. Although just a byproduct of coking, this stuff had immense utility. Sand was also a commodity in high demand. Besides being mixed with cement to make mortar, it was an excellent material for glassmaking. Using crystal for glass was good, but too expensive and less convenient to mine than sand, hindering the popularization of glass. Mica and feldspar served as substitutes for sand and could also be used to make glass. Cinnabar ore was mined in small quantities. Currently, its only uses were for red pigment and seal paste. Mercury? You had no need for it at the moment. There was also asbestos, a natural mineral fiber that could be made into fireproof cloth for protective clothing in specialized trades. However, this material hadn't been found yet. Locating it would depend on Yu Fu and his team's continued searching. As for the 4-deck 3-masted tower ships, production had already ceased. However, after reading Yu Fu's letter, you thought you could temporarily add a few more to the order, just to make do for now. True ocean-going vessels would have to be developed slowly. Ocean ships had many uses. At the very least, they needed to be differentiated into fishing boats and merchant ships. The Han tribe needed both. But more than the ships, you were interested in the Tang Tribe mentioned in Yu Fu's letter. Tens of thousands of people. More crucially, the Tang Tribe was located right at the mouth of the Luoyang River. If the Han Tribe wanted to master the seas and exploit marine resources, they absolutely needed a forward base to provide logistical support for a large fleet. But the Han tribe was already spread too thin, trying to manage the grasslands on one side and develop Bamboo Island on the other. Now, with the emergence of the Tang tribe, manpower was stretched thin. Therefore, it was best to utilize the local natives to establish this maritime forward base. Consequently, how to engage with the Tang tribe became the top priority. You carefully studied the information Yu Fu sent. The Tang tribe was a tribal alliance, and leadership was passed down through abdication rather than heredity. The best way to control it was to install one of your own people. Handle it directly from the top. This person could either be sent from the Han tribe or be a pro-Han member from within the Tang tribe. After much thought, cultivating a pro-Han native seemed the safest approach. The local tribes would accept it more easily, and later the entire Tang tribe could be gradually absorbed. You didn't think this would be difficult. The Tang tribe was merely an alliance. Compared to the Xin tribe, it lacked deep cultural roots. If the Han tribe intervened now, using direct cultural influence would be the most convenient and lasting method. Although it might take longer once successful, the natives' sense of belonging would be rock solid. That was the peaceful approach. Of course, there were less harmonious methods that didn't involve violence, using competition to seize influence. According to Yu Fu's report, the Tang tribe was not without enemies. Over a decade ago, their arch-rivals were defeated and moved closer to the sea. Later, this group suffered internal conflict, with many tribes returning to surrender to the Tang tribe, while others struck out on their own. What did this indicate? It showed these tribes lacked a strong sense of belonging to the so-called alliance. They'd align with whoever offered a better life. Since they could surrender to the Tang tribe for a better life, why couldn't they surrender to the Han tribe for an even better one? Following this line of thought, you could directly send people to contact those scattered tribes, luring them to the Han side with various benefits. Compared to the first plan of cultural infiltration and supporting proxies, this plan would yield quick results. Spend some money now and see immediate returns. For the rapidly developing Han tribe, or rather, for you, eager to see results, this plan held significantly more appeal. As for war, the thought hadn't even crossed your mind. War was not only expensive but also yielded the fewest benefits. The loss of population alone pained you deeply. Whether they were your own people or the enemies, in your eyes they were the same. Once discovered by the Han tribe, they were your people. Must be people-oriented. You sighed softly and finally made up your mind. Pursue both plans simultaneously. Establishing diplomatic relations with the Tang tribe was essential. You plan to form another envoy mission specifically to conduct cultural promotion in the Tang tribe. Separately, you would dispatch another group to implement the second plan, developing the Han tribe's own sphere of influence just across the river from the Tang tribe, using the river as a boundary. A two-pronged approach. This way you could quickly reap benefits. Once the Han tribe's own territory developed, showcasing high-yield grains, herds of livestock, advanced tools, plus all sorts of treasures hauled back from the sea, you didn't believe the smaller tribes under the Tang wouldn't be envious. If you could persuade even one tribe to join the Han tribe, subsequent annexation would become easier. This method was a bit aggressive, but you were confident you could control it and avoid open conflict. The Han tribe needed development. Aggressive. Militarism would only hold it back. This you knew better than anyone. A few days later, your reply finally reached Yu Fu and Shou Ya. The two had pretty much finalized the port plans and were currently at the mission encampment, receiving an important guest. "Yeah, Han envoys. Is this a ship made by your Han tribe? The one you mentioned, built using the entire tribe's resources, your largest transport vehicle?" Yu Fu and Shou Ya exchanged glances, both seeing immense pride in the other's eyes. Shou Ya turned and replied with a smile. "Elder Zhu, this is indeed a sailboat from our Han tribe. However, it's not our largest. We Han tribe have ships twice this size, giant vessels capable of carrying over 1,000 people at once." Shou Ya's tone was filled with pride. This elder Jew had come seeking Shou Ya under orders from the Xin Tribe's paramount leader. His main purpose was to inquire when the Han Tribe's support would arrive and when construction on the Great Sea Bridge project could begin. Unexpectedly, upon arrival, he saw this behemoth docked by the river. It was the first time in his life elder Jew had seen such a large man-made object, bigger than the largest house he had ever built. Hearing Shou Ya mention even larger ones left him utterly astounded. The Han Tribe's capabilities are truly formidable. Elder Jew rubbed his hands together. Might I go aboard and take a look? He looked eagerly at Shou Ya and Yu Fu, his face full of longing. Yu Fu immediately nodded. Seeing his agreement, Shou Ya also extended a warm invitation. Of course, the Han Tribe and Xin Tribe are friends after all. It's nothing. Elder Zhu, this way, please. Chatting and laughing, the group walked to the riverside, boarded the landing craft, and rowed out to the large sailboat anchored midstream. Elder Zhu, despite his advanced age, instantly transformed into a curious child, touching this and looking at that, constantly asking all sorts of questions. Mr. Yu, Elder Zhu addressed Yu Fu respectfully, mimicking Han Tribe etiquette. Did you travel across the sea in this very vessel? That's right, this very ship. Yu Fu nodded. We set out from the Han Tribe and sailed for several months to reach Bamboo Island. But rest assured, Elder Zhu, this was just a scouting trip. Now that the route is charted, the next time we come, the fleet will travel at full speed and save considerable time. Furthermore, our Han Tribe's newest model of large ship, although twice the size of this one, is even faster. Before long, we'll be able to conduct large-scale trade between the Han and Xin. Yu Fu also seized the opportunity to promote their capabilities. Elder Zhu took a tour of the ship and looked regretful as he prepared to leave. Ah, what a pity. Mr. Yu is heading back already. If only you could stay a few more days so our chief could see this for himself. He'd definitely be interested. This thing. Nearby, Shou Ya suddenly chimed in. No problem, we welcome Paramount Leader Xin's esteemed presence. Elder Zhu's eyes widened as he looked at Shou Ya in disbelief. What? Han Envoy, are you serious? Absolutely. It's completely true. Shou Ya patted his chest resoundingly. Group leader. You does have to make a trip back, but he'll return within a month at most. And when he does, 4 ships will come. Elder Zhu, you can use this time to hurry back to Clear Spring Valley and bring Paramount Leader Xin over. The round trip will take at least 20 days. By the time the Paramount Leader arrives, the fleet might just be returning. Shou Ya quickly revealed the plan from your letter, since Yu Fu's trip was just a short round trip anyway, letting the Xin leader see the Han Tribe's muscle and giving him some encouragement for his Sea Bridge project was perfectly fine. So that's how it is. Wonderful! Elder Zhu was so excited he rubbed his hands together. No, I have to leave right now. I must convince the chief to come see for himself. The old man was true to his word, mounting his horse and riding off like the wind. The mission encampment was in the east, Clear Spring Valley in the west. The round trip wasn't short, so he needed to hurry. Shou Ya didn't stop him. He and Yu Fu watched the old man disappear from view before turning back to discuss serious matters. Now that the sea route is open, contact will definitely become more convenient, and supplies will increase, Shou Ya said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. However, constantly propping up Bamboo Island like this isn't sustainable. It puts too much pressure on our tribe. Bamboo Island needs development, and we need to find a way to bring the Xin Tribe into the fold, but we can't be the only ones footing the bill. Not only can we not foot the bill, but we also need to find ways to profit from Bamboo Island. Otherwise, managing this territory will be a losing proposition. Yu Fu listened, pondered for a moment, and nodded. So, what are your thoughts? I can report back to the chief when I return. Shou Ya chuckled slyly. I think the most important thing now is to solve the output problem. Currently, the mission buys all its food, supplies, labor, and materials locally. What do we trade with? Just the few things we brought initially. If this continues, How much money and grain will we have to pour in just to build up a settlement? Besides, we're incredibly far away. Resupplying is so difficult. So my idea is to first generate some output, allowing the mission to support itself and stop being a drag on the tribe. Yu Fu frowned. Didn't you mention this last time? Shou Ya waved his hand dismissively. Let me finish. What I said last time was just the first step, self-sufficiency, not being a burden. The goal of this first step is survival. For the second step, we not only need to survive, but we also need to make money. Use the earned money to build the city here. This city must be large, and the tribe can't spend a single copper on it. As for the final step, Shou Ya's eyes gleamed. My plan is for the mission not only to develop this place well, but also to have enough output to support our Han tribe in return. Yu Fu nodded repeatedly in agreement. It's a good idea, but how do we achieve it? Just by what you mentioned last time, building carts ourselves and selling looms? Shou Ya immediately waved his hands like a pellet drum. No, 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 how much? Money can those little things sell for? What I'm thinking is, selling ships right here. You have no idea how hard life is for the fishing tribes around here. How difficult it is for them to go fishing every day. The few fish they catch are barely enough to feed themselves, and any small surplus has to be traded with the neighboring tribe for grain and tools. If we could build a batch of fishing boats and sell them, they'd definitely snap them up like crazy. Hearing this, Yu Fu's eyes almost popped out of his head, and he couldn't help but retort bluntly, That's ridiculously fanciful. What's wrong? My idea won't work? Shou Ya was a bit indignant. He'd only come up with this idea after hearing Yu Fu mention how easy fishing at sea was a few days prior. He hadn't expected to be shot down immediately. Yu Fu didn't answer directly, but posed a counter-question. Let me ask you, how long has our tribe mastered the technology for making carts and weaving? And how long for shipbuilding? But look around. How many families in our tribe own their own looms? Who can afford several large carts? Ships are even more out of the question, even those small, crappy 8-meter open-topped wooden boats with just a set of oars sell for 1,000 coins in our tribe. Our tribe's average monthly wage is only 30 coins. Do you think anyone in our tribe can afford one? Can anyone in this Xin tribe afford one? Besides, those small boats can't go far out to sea. Even for near-shore fishing, you'd need at least a 10 or 20-meter two-masted sailboat, right? The cost alone for such a boat in our tribe is 10 or 20,000. Do you think you could sell something like that in the Xin tribe? Even if someone wanted to buy one, could they afford it? Yu Fu's rapid-fire questions left Shou Ya speechless. He had only considered Bamboo Island's demand, forgetting whether they had the purchasing power. In this respect, Yu Fu the boatman had clearly thought things through more thoroughly. While Shou Ya was still stunned, Yu Fu suddenly put an arm around his shoulder and whispered in his ear, Shou Ya, oh Shou Ya, have you ever thought if the chief found out about this idea, how do you think he'd see you? Shou Ya froze, looking at Yu Fu in confusion. Yu Fu lowered his voice further, explaining, Think about it. Our mission only has a handful of people. Why should those Xin tribe leaders be so polite and respectful to us? Why do they let you call the shots here? Shou Ya thought for a moment and asked tentatively, Isn't it because we have the Han tribe behind us? The Han tribe doesn't mean shit here. Yu Fu couldn't help but curse bluntly. Seeing Shou Ya's shocked expression, he continued, Our Han tribe and Bamboo Island are worlds apart, completely unrelated. Why do we have so much influence on Bamboo Island now? I'll tell you, it's not because we're called the Han tribe. It's because the Han tribe controls all of Bamboo Island's external trade routes. Even though we haven't sealed off their secret cross-sea route to the mainland, we've monopolized the entire trade across the grasslands. It doesn't matter if that route is sealed or not. But you? Now you actually want to sell ships to the local natives? What were you thinking? What are ships, their means of transport? If they can go out fishing, they can cross the strait to the mainland opposite. If the Bamboo Island natives had ships, do you think you could still maintain a trade monopoly here? Wouldn't they sail to the mainland themselves to engage in clandestine trade? When that happens, once they have their own routes, who on Bamboo Island do you think will pay any attention to you, the Han envoy? Hearing this, Shou Ya broke out in a cold sweat, instantly understanding the implications. He asked with a troubled face, "But, if not this way, how can we earn that much money? The mission is really short on funds." Yu Fu kept his arm around Shou Ya's shoulder, glanced around to make sure no one was listening, and said mysteriously, "Making money is easy. Use fishing boats." Shou Ya froze again, looking at him with a frown. "Didn't you just say fishing boats are too expensive and wouldn't sell? Who said anything about selling fishing boats?" Yu Fu grinned mischievously. "We can operate the fishing boats ourselves and then sell fish. Haven't you heard about the situation back in our Hanyang commandery? The Ruyang River isn't wide, but water transport is highly developed, right? The river is full of small boats, each costing 1,000 coins, which hardly anyone can afford. But why are there still so many boats on the river? Because the chief set up a boat rental business. Those who want to do some transport work during the agricultural off-season can just pay a rental fee. No need to sell everything they own just to buy a boat." Shou Ya sucked his teeth thoughtfully and asked tentatively, "So, after all that, you want me to follow the chief's example and rent out boats?" "Rent my ass." Yu Fu slapped his forehead. In exasperation, "What's the difference between renting and selling? You'd still be handing over the trade routes on a platter. Then what do you suggest?" Seeing Yu Fu's look of disdain, Shou Ya grew agitated too, his face flushing red as he snapped irritably. On the grasslands, Modin led his cavalry hordes, like a swarm of locusts, frantically plundering the weaker surrounding tribes. This had been going on for over a month, his way of trying to make up for the losses incurred fighting the Han tribe. Meanwhile, on the lake island east of the Han tribe's Waishan commandery, a different scene unfolded. Factory buildings sprang up one after another, and countless slaves and prisoners of war toiled under the command of Han tribe craftsmen. Coking towers, calcium carbide furnaces, chemical plants, coal tar separation towers, glass workshops. A whole host of impressive-sounding chemical projects were taking root deep within these swamps. East of Bamboo Island, on the vast sea, Yu Fu and his group waved goodbye to the Fish Tribe folks on the reef platform and set sail once again. Their destination was the Tang Tribe near the river mouth. There, Yu Fu would rendezvous with the Yuo. 3 ships left behind, replenish supplies, and then head straight back to the mission encampment on Bamboo Island. On the top deck of the sailboat, a large straw mat was spread out, holding a low table. Yu Fu was sprawled out on the cool mat, sleeping soundly tucked into the huge shadow of the sail. Across the low table from him, Tangi gripped the railing with both hands, staring blankly at the endless sea. The sea breeze caressed his cheeks, but his mind was replaying the extraordinary experiences of the past few days like a movie. Tangi considered himself someone who had seen the world, in an era where travel was mostly by foot and communication mostly by shouting. He had been to many places, met many tribes, and encountered many people. But the experiences of the last few days had still shaken him to the core. Traveling with these strange people calling themselves the Han tribe, he had ventured onto the salt water in their strange contraption. Not only had they encountered sea monsters larger than the ship in the salt water, but they had also discovered a new landmass. Even more absurdly, when he set foot on that new land, he found that Han tribe people had already arrived long ago and were clearing land, farming, and building encampments there. This series of worldview-shattering experiences had been a significant shock for Tangi. By now, however, he had recovered and was beginning to try and accept this crazy reality. "Hey, what are you thinking about?" Yu Fu had woken up some time earlier and suddenly sat up, shouting at Tangi's back, "Are you interested in doing business with our Han tribe when you get back?" Tangi jumped, snapping out of his daze. He turned around and looked at Yu Fu, utterly confused. I said. Yu Fu saw he hadn't understood and added gestures. "When you go back this time, do you want To do bussiness, huh, with our Han tribe? Trade. Tangi frowned, thinking. Trade what? Trading with our Han tribe, of course, depends on what you want. Yu Fu adopted the air of a big shot. Almost anything you can think of, our Han tribe has most of it. Anything I want, you can sell to me? Tangi asked doubtfully. Of course, as long as you can afford the price, Yu Fu muttered inwardly, but kept a smile on his face as he continued. What do you want? I want to learn shipbuilding, navigation, and fishing techniques from you. Is that possible? Tangi voiced his truest desire, also wanting to probe the Han tribe's intentions and see if they were open to cooperation. However, he clearly overestimated his own value. Well, it's not impossible, Yu Fu said with a knowing smile. But I'm more interested in knowing what you plan to trade for it. Well, right now I can't give you much, but if you want to ask about the local situation, I can tell you everything I know. Seeing Yu Fu's playful expression, clearly unimpressed, by this offer, Tangi had to grit his teeth and up the ante. If I can become the leader of the Tang Tribe in the future, I can give you some land. I wonder if that condition is sufficient. Yu Fu smiled again. Trying to trade an empty promise for the Han Tribe's core technology? He didn't know whether to call Tangi naive, or if the man took the Han Tribe for fools. However, remembering the secret letter the chief had sent him privately, he suppressed his disdain and tried to guide him. You know, land itself isn't really worth much. There's plenty of uncultivated wasteland in the world. If our Han tribe wanted land, we could just clear it ourselves. Tangi was instantly speechless. He knew Yu Fu was right. Just offering some land wasn't very appealing. He finally asked honestly, then, what does your Han tribe actually want? Yu Fu quickly reviewed the chief's letter in his mind, organized his thoughts, and then spoke. Teaching you shipbuilding, yes, that's possible, but you have to agree to a few conditions. First, you're familiar with the local situation. Help me find several small tribes living independently, take my people to meet them, and help us win them over. Seeing Tangi's surprised expression, Yu Fu continued without waiting for him to speak. Second, act as an intermediary between the Tang Tribe and the Han Tribe, promoting cooperation between our two tribes. I'll tell you the specifics of the cooperation later. Third, regarding shipbuilding, our Han Tribe plans to build a shipyard here and invite your Tang Tribe to participate. If you can agree to all these conditions and sincerely work for our Han Tribe in the future, I can propose to our chief that you become the Tang Tribe's representative in charge of this shipyard. Once the shipyard starts operating, it will definitely need many workers. As the person in charge, you get to decide who gets to work in the factory. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hearing these conditions, Tangi was stunned. He hadn't expected Yu Fu to actively offer help, making him the shipyard representative responsible for hiring. This authority was incredibly useful. He could totally use this opportunity to place all his trusted people in the shipyard. Then, wouldn't all the shipbuilding experts in the Tang Tribe become his people? Wouldn't he have a much better chance of competing for the chief's position in the future? Compared to these tangible benefits, the conditions Yu Fu proposed seemed less important. Although he didn't know why the Han Tribe wanted to win over those small tribes, it didn't really concern him much, nor would it harm the Tang Tribe's interests, so agreeing wouldn't hurt. As for cooperation, although Yu Fu hadn't elaborated, Tangi could guess it was just trade. Having witnessed the Han Tribe's capabilities on Bamboo Island, he already recognized the strength of their trading power. Allowing the Tang Tribe to get involved, especially since his own tribe would soon have ships, he wasn't worried about the Tang Tribe being at a disadvantage in the cooperation. Finally, there was the condition of dedicatedly working for the Han Tribe. Tangi thought carefully and agreed. He felt that although the Han Tribe would develop its influence locally, their main focus certainly wasn't here, given how far their homeland was. Having him work for them likely just meant coordinating relations with the local natives. He wasn't opposed to this. In fact, he felt he could use this position to, in turn, restrain the Han tribe's local development, making them understand who was really in charge in this territory. In early July, the weather began to turn, officially marking the start of the coastal region's stormy season. On their return journey, Yu Fu and his crew encountered two fierce thunderstorms with lightning and thunder, Tang Chi traveling with them. Calmly informed everyone that such weather occurred about 4 times a month during the hot summer, averaging 1 major downpour per week, with strong winds possible at any time. Of course, this was just an average. Sometimes it might rain twice a month, while the next month could see rain for 7 or 8 consecutive days. It all depended on the mood of the heavens. Fortunately, they had gained experience from the previous voyage. Although the wind and rain made things difficult this time, they managed to return to the mainland safely, albeit after a few close calls. On a bright and sunny morning, nearly a month after setting out, the flagship of the expedition group finally sailed slowly into the familiar river mouth, achieving a victorious rendezvous with the 3 ships waiting there. What followed was intense work unloading, loading, and replenishing supplies. On the bank of the great river, Tang Chi and the other guide, Chijiri, once again set foot on their homeland. After helping the fleet purchase supplies, the two cupped their hands in farewell to Yu Fu. "Mr. Yu will be leaving now." "So soon?" Yu Fu quickly reminded him. "Are you planning to head back to your tribe first, or go find those isolated small tribes?" He hadn't forgotten his agreement with Tang Chi. Back to the tribe first. Tang Chi seemed to have already decided. "I've been gone a month. I need to see the chief first. Don't worry, Mr. Yu. I remember our agreement. After I see the chief, I'll immediately set out to help you contact those tribes. However, I hope you won't delay too long on Bamboo Island this time and return as soon as possible." Yu Fu nodded, exchanged fist clasps with Tang Chi, and watched the two depart. After Tang Chi left, the weather turned foul again, with more rain forcing the fleet to stay put for 2 days. At dawn on the 3rd day, the sky finally cleared, and the fleet immediately weighed anchor and set off. The route was now established, and knowing the journey would take 10 days at most, they had streamlined the food and drink supplies carried on board this time. The freed-up space was packed with trade goods urgently needed by the mission. Perhaps all of July's wind and rain had been concentrated in the first half of the month, because the fleet's second voyage to Bamboo Island was exceptionally smooth. They enjoyed clear skies all the way. Although the sea breeze was strong, it wasn't unbearably so. Instead, it sped the sailboats along. As a result, they arrived 2 days earlier than expected, reaching Bamboo Island in just 7 days. Unlike the previous stealthy arrival, the mission had clearly made preparations for reception this time. Standing on the deck, Yu Fu looked at the dense crowd on the shore and knew what was going on. At the very front of the crowd, the middle-aged man dressed in a Han Tribe brocade robe, surrounded by several old men. If he wasn't mistaken, that must be the Xin Tribe paramount leader and his council of elders, who had specifically come to see the large sailboats. Following Yu Fu's earlier suggestion to move the docks further up the inland river, Shou Ya had spent the past half-month organizing personnel and local laborers to build 2 temporary floating bamboo jetties. These now proved useful, meaning the fleet no longer had to go through the trouble of using landing craft to get ashore. Ignoring the enthusiasm of the onlookers on the shore, the 4 sailboats, under the command of their respective captains, calmly adjusted their positions and slowly approached the jetties. "Lower sails, hard right rudder, turn left, stern sculling oars, forward." A group of burly scullers began manually fine-tuning the positions, eventually bringing the 4 large ships to rest steadily alongside the jetties. Dropping anchor, securing mooring lines, all in one smooth sequence. Standing on the shore, the Gin paramount leader watched the Han tribe's large ships sailing in formation, feeling incredibly excited. He couldn't help but murmur in admiration. "Is this the skill of the Han tribe in making things? Truly impressive. These are practically houses that can move on water." Though inwardly stunned as the leader of a large tribe, he forced himself to appear calm, unlike the inexperienced tribesmen beside him who were shouting and yelling. The elders surrounding him were also muttering softly among themselves. My goodness, so this is a ship. How can such a huge thing float on water? Elder Du, who had come along to see the excitement, couldn't help exclaiming, Look at the people on top. Dozens on just one ship. And the belly underneath is so big, who knows how much stuff it can hold. Elder Sheng next to him also clicked, his tongue in wonder. Tsk tisk, the Han envoy was right, this thing called a ship is truly remarkable. Elder Chi, who specialized in manufacturing, had a much more expert gaze. Look at those two large cloths hanging up there. Only the Han tribe could think of using the wind to move such a huge thing. That Han chief of theirs, his brain really works. Ah, and that thing at the back. Elder Chi made a new discovery. Even if they take down the cloths, when there's no wind, they can still move the ship by rowing that thing. It just looks a bit slow. His words drew the attention of the other elders, who all looked towards the hard-working scullers at the sterns. After watching for a while, Elder Mi also expressed admiration. What's that thing called? Looks like they learned it from fish. Perhaps? Take a look, doesn't it look just like a fishtail? Swinging side to side makes the boat move. Hey, you know what? It really does. Someone else had a realization. If that's a fishtail at the back, what are those two cloths on top? Bird wings. Tsk. See, the Han tribe is truly formidable. You have to admire them. Elder Chi once again lamented the technological gap between the Han and Xin tribes. They can learn something from any animal they see and even apply it. Our thinking is still flawed. If we had that spirit of inquiry, maybe our Xin tribe could also build such behemoths. Humph. Elder Jin, always haughty, was dismissive of his colleague's praise. Learn from any animal they see? Not necessarily. You say those two cloths are like bird wings, so why aren't there ships flying in the sky then? He admitted the Han tribe had some skill, and their things were practical, but he just couldn't stand seeing his own elders kissing up to the Han tribe, especially that most obvious Han sympathizer, Elder Zhu. Watching that old fellow copying. The Han envoys bowing and hand-clasping made him feel disgusted. Elder Chi started to retort. Enough! Stop arguing! The paramount leader at the front, focused on building the sea bridge and achieving eternal fame, interrupted. The newly arrived Han envoys are disembarking. Come with me to greet them. Don't you dare give me sour looks. I'm telling you, if any of you jeopardize this cooperation with the Han tribe and cause trouble for the great bridge-building project, don't blame me for turning against you. Having issued his warning, the paramount leader immediately put on a smiling face and went to greet Yu Fu and the others coming down the jetty. Elder Jin's face was gloomy, but a hint of smugness played on his lips. Elder Chi shot him a fierce, "Dermai." Nearby, Elders Mi, Du, and Sheng exchanged glances, looking like they were ready to watch a good show.